Hello, can you folks hear me? I can't hear you.
And to me, as the student yourself, that this is what you meant.
Hey, can you hear me?
Hey Doug, this is Audra. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
We want to test the sound, so
We
we
don't
can't
hear you
hear
right
you
now.
right this second. We're gonna test something out here.
Okay.
On your computer, it's got them locked out.
No, he's not muted. Yeah.
What does it say?
Same system as microphone, same system as speaker noise. Down
They
is
do
everything in
echo
here.
canceling, speakerphone?
Testing.
Or this one.
Well, you're,
Mhm.
Testing.
computer audio. Since he's host, would he have us muted on his end?
No, he's not muted. He's co-host. We're
Yeah.
co-hosts.
So same,
It says leave computer audio, but
Hello?
okay. Doug, can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, you're coming through our computer.
Okay.
We're wanting you to come through a different speaker. Dondi's checking.
Yeah. Okay.
If that doesn't work, we can just turn it up and then.
Be a mic, just a microphone, yeah.
Redo.
Is that the volume's up? They already hears him.
I mean, it's pretty good. He's pretty
Yeah.
good, coming in pretty good, so.
We should put a microphone here.
We can just use a microphone. Rather than try to fiddle with it.
I don't know if that's going to create any feedback or not.
Oh,
But
it
Can
shouldn't.
try it.
Yeah, it shouldn't. It's just a regular, it's like me holding a microphone.
Yeah. Okay.
It should be okay.
Okay, can you say something?
Hello.
Can everybody hear
morning.
me okay? Okay, I think we're good.
Okay. good.
Great. Okay.
All right. We can go ahead and
So close. Okay,
start. Go ahead, Marianne.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Mary Ann Mueller, and as I went to get a pen, which I forgot, the meeting, Heather reminded me that I had currently signed up as a chair of this group, which was a shock and a surprise to me, but here you go. So please bear with me. I have no idea what we're doing. Just let me call it the meeting to order. At what time do we have specifically?
10:06.
10:06. And let's begin by review and approval of the draft agenda. Is everybody okay with it? And can I get a move to approve it, please? So moved. And seconded?
Second.
Okay. Resident comments on agenda items. I'm sorry, we're not facing the residents. There's only one of you, 2, 3. Okay, no comments?
I may have comments.
Okay, very well. Audra, remind me, is
Okay.
this gentleman speak now then, or do we do it later?
It's up to you if you want to.
Do you wanna give a highlight of?
No, I may have some questions as he goes through the material,
Okay, okay.
just some definitions and how to use different terms, and so forth.
I'm okay with that if everybody else is, since we don't have a crowd of people. Now let's see here, so we don't need to move on that, do we, Audra? I don't think so.
No,
No. Okay, review and approval of the draft minutes. Can I get someone to please make a move that we approve them if there's no discussion that's necessary? So, and seconded? Second. Okay, thank you very much. Chairperson's comments, okay, I am a big proponent of having people understand what we're doing. So please know that I don't think any question is or out of bounds. I ask that we're all respectful of one another. And I will try my hardest not to interrupt. Marie will give me a good kick if I do, please. It's your job. Good, good. You're in charge of me. Okay. So with that, let's get this party started. Management comments, Audra Reed.
I have nothing further. I have nothing to say. We get into it.
And then we're going to review the draft reserve study with Doug Green of DMA Reserves. Doug, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Would you like me to start?
Yes, please.
Go right ahead.
Okay, very good. Well, thank you for having me here at your meeting digitally, I guess, virtually. And just to background again, I'm Doug Green. I'm president of DMA Reserves. We're based in Richmond and have done your reserve study previously, and we're doing that was called an original reserve study. This study is called a level 2 update with site visit, which means that we came back out to the property and looked at everything at the property again, essentially made another visual assessment of the condition of everything. We also included or incorporated the history that has, in terms of reserve asset replacements that has occurred since the last study. That information in terms of actual costs and actual timeframes of occurrences is now incorporated into this study as well. So what's happening is over time, the reserve study will become more and more a history of what has actually been happening at the community. Still right now, there's a lot of estimated costs and estimated replacement dates. But over time, that information is going to fill in as actual history. So what I want to do today is I'm going to put up on the screen 2 things. I'm going to start with the picture of the published report that we sent you, and I'm just going to go through and highlight pages of that report to make sure you understand what it's saying to you. And then secondly, we can go to a live version of the report where if we want to make any changes, corrections, or do any further analysis, we can do that while we're in the meeting here. So we'll have a live version where I can actually make changes to the study. So and I'm happy to do this on a let's say on a casual basis, meaning I'll entertain questions at any time, but you may want to as I go through this explanation of the published report, you may want to hold questions for until I get to the end of that, because what I find is a lot of times people raise a question that I'm going to answer a couple of pages further into the report. So let me get through that part first, and then I'm happy to discuss any questions, and we can look at the active version. So with that, I'm going to share my screen and get out of that, get out of that, get out of that. And do you see the cover of the report on your screen?
Yes.
Okay. All right. And actually, just gonna see if I can get full screen here. Okay. Do you still see the report on your screen?
Yes.
Okay. Very good. Okay. So I'm not going to read every page in the report, but I am going to stop at various parts and talk about what's going on there. On page 3 of the report, Introduction to Physical Analysis and Financial Analysis. Essentially, a reserve study is two things. The physical analysis is looking at all of the assets in the community that you're responsible for, that is the master association is responsible for, and dividing them, creating out of those assets components, which are allowances for replacement and major repair of those assets. And the physical analysis is simply identifying that, assessing the condition of everything, assigning an estimated replacement cost to everything, and an estimated useful life. Meaning, if we have something that we think is going to last 10 years, then we're going to put that in to the report. The other important thing in this report that you won't see in a lot of reserve studies is actually identifying the last replacement year. So you will see that in the physical analysis as well. That's important because this report, this study or this analysis is updatable and will be updatable by you folks. So we want to get as much accurate information as we can on the existing information about each component. So in this summary here, this has some summary of the report based on the draft that we've just sent you. This page will change every time we reissue the report. So we'll issue another report after this meeting, and anything that we've changed in this meeting about the report will be reflected in here. Just getting down to the physical analysis, I'm not going to read it entirely, but you'll see at the bottom of the page, we have pavements here. That is the roadway coming in and all of the parking lots on site, as well as any concrete paving. This is a section that has changed since the previous study, in that we have shortened the expected useful life of the pavements, looking at the condition of them out there. We actually shortened the life in our initial draft, and in talking with management, we've shortened the life a little more because the pavements are not holding up very well at this point in time. The other thing we have, let me come back here. The other thing we have done on pavements is increased our allowances for repaving to include base repair costs where the base of the pavement appears to be weak and will need some repair. Okay. The one question in the study, and You'll see in a minute, the interiors of the clubhouse make up the largest total expenditure of all of those things together. The largest portion of your reserve expenditures in the study. And we have a lot of things that are itemized. We also have a general reserve allowance, which covers things such as general replacement allowance or renovation allowance, which covers things such as restrooms and other common area elements. Those are not, and they were not itemized in the previous study, because actually when we did the previous study, you were in the middle of a major renovation. And we took information from that, cost information from that, and built that into the analysis. So you'll see in the interior section, you'll see a general renovation allowance, and then you'll also see a lot of itemized components in there. The wood shop we had not included in the past study, and we have included that facility now and itemized. You do have a number of components that are quite expensive, and have itemized those in the study, and then put in an allowance for the the aggregate of all the other smaller pieces of equipment in there, so that we have a replacement allowance for that in the wood shop. Again, what you'll see is the driving things that are driving the funding plan are obviously in the short term going to be the paving project, and the other project which hasn't really, the information hasn't really changed since the last study, but is the potential future replacement of the tennis court portion of the roof, which does require demolition of the tennis court itself to do that. So those are the two things that will be driving the funding plan, if you will. Down at the bottom of the financial analysis, that is the funding plan. And I think rather than read that, I'm going to show you that information as we go through it in a couple of minutes. So we'll get into the funding plan. So then we go to the physical analysis, and we have the schedule of components. And there are 265 components in the study now, broken down into 7 sections. And you can see the number of components in each section on there. Again, the largest number of components is in the clubhouse interiors. And if you move to the right on the sheet, you'll see that's also the largest cost replacement expense. The replacement expenses in this sheet today here represent the one-time replacement value, the current replacement value of each of these components. So in 2022 dollars, the replacement, the one-time replacement value of things in the reserve analysis are just about $12.5 million. And we're going to use that number to develop a part of the funding plan in a minute, but just wanted you to see that as kind of the total value or the current value of these reserves. Following this page are a number of pages of all of the components in the study. A component is simply, again, a project to replace an asset, essentially. So in this case, this is resurfacing pavement with base road repair allowance. In the last study, again, we just had a resurfacing allowance, what's called a mill and overlay. Now we've added some money for base repair. So that's this project, and this is for Lansdowne Woods Boulevard. You'll see there's the same project essentially for the different locations in the community, noted by the location. Where it says assembly here, that means that this component has more than one component task in it, which, as I said, one is the milling and overlaying of the pavement, and the other is base repair. So there's 2 subcomponents in this component. Going over to the right, the last time these were paved was 2014. And so that is what's called the in-service date or replacement year. We had a estimated useful life, I think, of 25 years in the past study. they're definitely not holding up. So they are reduced to 16 years in this study and again, from today's date being 2026, there's 4 years remaining, and the next replacement year is estimated at 2030. All of these things, keep in mind that a schedule of components that is setting out these replacement dates is a guide and is a plan, and the plan can always be revised. So, we can look at moving that farther out or accelerating it and doing it sooner. But this is what the plan is presenting right now, and the funding plan will be based on this expenditure plan. So we have these things showing up in 2030. We then have a cost for each of them. This says unit cost. In the case of an assembly component, the unit cost is actually going to be the total cost of that assembly. So it's actually the project cost in this case for each of these sections of the parking lot and the roads. So that is the unit cost times one unit, basically one lump sum cost, replacing 100% of the pavement. And that is the replacement expense in the study year. Meaning that everything in this schedule, everything in this column will be 2026 costs. However, when they are done, they are going to be revised with inflation. So when we actually get to the expenditure table where we're showing that expenditure, this cost will be increased to a future cost with inflation, which I'll show you in a little bit. Just going to the next page, you will see throughout the schedule of components, a lot of components that say a documented cost was used. And in this case, this is a cost that we had for seal coating and crack filling from this contractor. And so that information is here, and this is the actual cost that we're using in the study because this is the cost that you paid. And again, when I say that, this is the value of that cost in 2026. I think the actual cost was less than that, but that cost has been adjusted with inflation to a 2026 value. So this is a cost that came from the contractor that did the work, and again, that work was done in 2024. So here's a case where we have an actual cost in the study. Beyond that, you will see a couple of other things. If I go down to this stamped concrete circle replacement at the clubhouse circle, that's in the middle of kind of the cul-de-sac at the entrance. Going across here, again, we have the in-service date and expected life, remaining life, and a potential replacement year. Here's where a unit cost is actually based on the measurement of the pavement, and that's the more typical way that our studies are done. So that circle has 675 square feet, that's SF, square feet of pavement, and we have a cost per square foot estimated for that replacement of $27.44. That unit cost times the number of units times the percent replaced, which we're saying in this case would be 100%, would produce a project of $18,522. So that's how this works with a unit cost and a measurable number of units and 100% replacement. Now, if we go up to, let's say, the concrete sidewalk repair allowance, and this says repair allowance. So that's a little different component. Here we have measured the total amount of sidewalk in the entire community that you're responsible for of 47,100 square feet. And we have a per square foot allowance for repair work, which can take many forms. It may include replacement of a section of sidewalk. It may include leveling of the sidewalk. It may include grinding down two edges that are misaligned. One has been, uplifted maybe by roots or something, and so you might repair it by just grinding down the edge of that pavement. So there's different projects that can happen there, and this is kind of the worst case cost, $16 per square foot allowance. That produces a total value of doing all of the sidewalks. And then in an allowance, we're taking a percentage of that and saying every so often, in this case, in 5 years, we will have money in the budget for 6% of that total value of replacement for all of the walks. And that becomes a budget source for doing that work. And that recurs every so many years. And we'll look at how that recurs in a little bit. But so this is a budget allowance for work that you will do on repairing sidewalks. And that's how these percentages work. We have some stormwater components above that. This is actually stormwater and concrete curb. So here's a case where we had a lot of different components in there. The total replacement of all the concrete curb around all of the parking lots and all the roads in the community is over $2 million. That's the total value of that. And then we have a 1% allowance for replacement repair work every so often on those curbs. So that's how this study works when we're dealing with allowances. So I'm not going to, again, I'm happy to look at any specific components when we get to the live study and we can talk about any of those. So I'm just going to get down through these pages. There's quite a few. We also gave you, even though there's quite a lot of pages here, we also gave you a second report called the component record, which has more information on all of these components in it. It's a longer report, and it's not meant to be read as a report. It's kind of a reference tool so that you can find a component number and find that component in that report and get more information about it, including any condition assessment comments that we've made about it. So that, again, the total replacement value of these components in 2026 is $12,588,000. And we move ahead to looking at the funding plan now. And we're starting with known information. So we have a known starting point on your financial situation. So we look at your total budget assessment for 2026, which is $3,195,936, and how much of that is being put into the reserve account. And your budget has $542,171 going into the reserve account. And we have the beginning balance of the reserve account as of January 1st of $958,570. So these are starting points for our funding plan, how much money is going in this year and how much money is in there at the beginning of this year. Then we had that total current replacement value. And what we're going to do in the funding plan is create a minimum reserve account value that we never want the account to go below. And this is not set in stone. There's no law that requires a certain amount versus some other amount. You folks can decide where you want it to be. We as a starting point take 5% of this value, of this total replacement value, and set that as a minimum reserve balance. And I'll show you how that works in the funding plan in a minute. But that 5% of this number is $629,409. Then we're going to look at a funding plan, and this is just a summary of that, starting with what you're putting into the account this year. And as you'll see in a bit, the funding plan is going to recommend a 12% increase next year of just the reserve transfer. That's not 12% of this number. It's just 12% of the money going into the reserves, or 12% increase in the money going into the reserves, $607,232. And that is going ahead at 12% per year. That's going to get cut down in future years, but initially we're looking at that. Again, that's mainly to get over the hump to pay for road paving. So that's what's on this summary page. This is followed by 3 pages of this graph, and it's the same graph on each page, but under the graph are 10-year increments. This is a 30-year funding plan, so it's a 30-year graph. The first 10 years are located here and are highlighted in the graph by this sort of grayed grayed out portion. So what the graph is showing, starting with 2026, is showing the end of year, projected end of year reserve account balance with the green bar. And each of these green bars going forward is the end of year reserve account balance for that year. So how do we get to that balance? Well, we come down here to the table. The beginning balance, as I said, on January 1st was 958,570. You're going to transfer 542,171 into that account. You're going to earn some money on this money that's sitting in various bank accounts. You're going to earn interest on that. So we're showing a potential earnings on that here as an income line. And then we had certain expenditures that are going, in this case, in 2026, they're going to be a combination of projected potential expenditures and actual expenditures that we know you've already done or are doing. So this is the potential outlay of funds from the reserve account for various reserve components. And just doing the math, starting from this number, adding the income, subtracting the expenditures, we have a projected end of year balance of 1,294,300. That number is reflected by this green bar. The threshold, which we talked about a moment ago, that 5% number is down here at 629,000. That is represented by the level of this yellow line right here at the first in the first year. And the expenditures, the 230,000, is represented by this red bar here. So going across the graph, what you will see is over time, you will have a number of years with you know, normal, I'm going to say normal amount of expenditures. You're going to have some years with a higher amount of reserve expenditures, and you're going to see those with the taller red bars in the graph. And the threshold that's going across from left to right, you'll see is gradually going uphill. So two things are happening in this graph. Number one, all of these expenditures are having inflation added to those 2026 numbers. So the numbers that are actually being used in these years are going to be higher for these components. And so since we're applying inflation to the value of the expenditures, we're also indexing this threshold line to inflation. So that's why it's gradually going uphill. So what is considered 6% of your total value of your reserves here would be a higher number in the future. And that's how this threshold line is going up. The simple goal of this cash flow funding plan is to pay for everything that is shown in these expenditures and keep the account at or above this line. So you'll see that there are several years where the account balance is drawn down to near that line, and then it builds up again. And essentially, of course, this is a savings account. So when your expenditures are small, you are putting more money in than you're taking out, and the account gradually grows. When we have a large expenditure year, that's spending this money, and that's why the balance is the result of that is the balance is lower. And so when we said we were adding 12% per year, or increasing it by 12% per year, we were doing that so that this amount, when we hit this year of this large expenditure, stayed above this line. It took 12% increases to do that, essentially. Now, as we go forward and you go down here, you'll see the transfer rate change of 12%. You'll see in 2031 that drops to 4.5%. And that is the increase that is made in this transfer to reserves starting in 2031. This number is only 4.5% larger than the 2030 number. That's because we got past this point, and this is that projected paving work among a few other things. So once we got past that point, we were actually able to lower the annual increases and still stay above the threshold with the cost that we were seeing in the future. And actually, when we get past 2034, we can actually drop that lower, and that's to 1.3% increase per year. And if I go to the next page, which now shows the middle 10 years, that 1.3% continues, so that Once we get past this low point, we're only increasing the contribution to reserves by 1.3% per year to get us to this point, essentially, where we have, again, enough money in the reserves to stay above the threshold line. So that's how the cash flow funding plan works. It is plotting out your future expenditures with inflation and then creating a savings account or savings plan that will put enough money in the account to get over all of these humps that occur over the life of the study. And then that third page is the last year in the 30-year plan. Our typical plan is 30 years. We can always expand these out to 40 or 50 years if we feel there's a need to. But I think the things that are driving the plan are all happening in the first 30 years here. So I think that's long enough to capture, what's driving the plan right now. Excuse me. Following that page, we have what's called an assessment allocation model. And what this is doing is looking at that reserve expenditure and putting it in context with your overall budget. So in this top line, the 2026 line, we had that reserve expenditure of 542,000. We had the budgeted assessments of 3,195,000, almost 3,196,000. The reserve transfer is 17% of that budget. The 17% of that income is going into reserves. The other 83% is basically what we will call your operating budget. All of the other things that are in your budget, which we'll call the operating budget, total 83% of that, use 83% of that income. Now, the reason we call this a model is we're doing a projection going forward, and our study is not in the business of projecting or telling you what your operating assessment should be. So all we're doing is taking this number and applying an inflation rate to it. And we use a variable inflation rate, which I'll show you in a moment. So we're applying what we expect the potential inflation rate, and this is the CPI inflation rate actually, how that might impact your operating assessment, apart from any other decisions that the board makes and that you folks make or recommend to the board on operating budgets. This is just saying, if all of the things being equal, inflation may impact it in this way. So we're letting it increase by that amount each year. Then we have the amount that we were recommending to increase the reserve transfer, which in the first 4 years was 12% per year, and then in the next 4 years was 4.5% per year. And we're showing that amount here. So if we put these two numbers together, that would point to a potential increase in the overall budget of just over 5% in the first year. That goes up a little bit as that 12% continues to take a bite. That goes up a little bit and then becomes lower in later years as the reserve amount gets lower. So this is just kind of creating a contextual view of how the reserve funding plan is going to impact your budget. This is done on a budget-wide level, and then we break it down just to the number of units in the community on an annual level and on a monthly level. So that's what these pages are showing. Then we just have a discussion of the financial analysis, and that brings us to inflation. What we do is we perform an inflation analysis every year and update it every year. And so every time we update our study, we'll have a slightly different inflation analysis in that study. What this is showing is it's showing on the left half of this graph is showing the history of inflation rates over the last 30 years. And we're tracking two inflation rates. One is the common one, as I mentioned, is the CPI rate. That's this gold line here. And the one that has actually a greater impact on your reserves is the building cost index. And this is an industry-wide tracking of building cost increases. And so that's essentially an inflation rate related to construction costs. The difference between that and the CPI is that is taking into account both material costs and labor costs related to a construction project or any kind of major work project where you're having a contractor come in and replace something. So we actually apply inflation to each component in the study rather than the study as a whole. And that allows us to decide whether it's more appropriate to apply the building construction and or building cost index or the CPI rate. Components like furniture or kitchen equipment, things like that, we will apply a CPI rate inflation to those because you're essentially just purchasing them and putting them on site. You're not necessarily hiring a contractor to build something or do some construction work related to those. Looking back those 30 years, you can obviously see the post-COVID inflation bump that happened here. You can also see that historically construction costs are more volatile than the CPI. You'll have some bigger jumps here that occur. Generally all these things happen short term. If you have a major anomaly, let's say a big jump in inflation, it's going to come down somewhat nearly as fast. So, it's an erratic thing, but it goes up and down, and that's how inflation happens. Going to the right side of this schedule, we are doing two things. We are in the first 2 years projecting an inflation trend based on a trend analysis that we do. And so we're showing both of these inflation rates going up between 26 and 27 and coming down between 27 and 28. After 2028, we massage these rates down to what is essentially the mean inflation rate for the entire 30-year period back here. So, in that long view, the mean inflation rate is just one side or the other of 2.5% for this entire, in spite of all this craziness, it comes out to this in a long-term view. We obviously can't predict the craziness, but we can predict in the short term some trends. And so by doing this, when we have a component that we're going to replace, let's say in the short term, let's say in 2031, we're going to apply an inflation index for each of these years to that to get the potential cost for that in 2031. And so that short-term replacement will be more impacted by inflation trends. If I'm replacing something in 2046, I'm doing the same thing, but you'll see that the majority of the years that we're applying the inflation rate to are going to be more typical of the long-term rate. So that will have a little more conservative inflation rate to it for these long-term components. That's just how we do inflation. We used to just pick a number, as most reserve analysts do, but when this happened, we said, well, maybe we need to take a little harder look at that and try to get a better sense of how inflation is impacting our communities. So that's what this is doing. That is followed by a page that looks like the initial page and the schedule components. It's the same breakdown, but the difference here is this is looking at the potential replacements over the entire 30-year period for all of these components, and that reflects the inflationary costs of those components. Also reflects that there are some components in your study that will be replaced more than once in the 30-year period. So you may have multiple replacements going on at this as well. So that total expenditure over 30 years is looking at $31,264,000. And again, these percentages based on the activity here, they change a little bit, but interiors is still the larger percentage of that, followed by site pavements as the next one. This page is followed by 30 pages, essentially, that, well, there may be more than 30 because some may go on more than one page, but of all the projected projects that we're looking at in each of the 30 years going forward. And again, as we get out beyond 2026, these numbers will reflect the inflation added value for each of these components. So those are the numbers, and this is one of those pages that went a page and a half actually. So that 725,000 in 2028 is the inflation adjusted expenditure number for those components. Keep in mind, this is a plan, and the plan is intended to create a logic for your funding plan, but we don't dictate that you need to replace things in any given year. Those are purely your decisions, and you will be able to, because you're going to have editing ability in this plan, you will be able to rethink this plan as time goes on and say, look at 2029, for example, and say, yeah, we want to do this year, but we want to move this up to 2027, or we want to move this back to 2030. You'll be able to do those things and see how they impact the study on an ongoing basis. So that's essentially what is in the published document. And let me get out of that view. And I'm just going to go, this is the live document. And at this point, before I go farther, I guess I will entertain any questions that you may be saving up.
Who would like to start? Who would like to start with questions?
Well, I guess I will. Hi, Doug.
Hello.
Several things. First of all, I wanted to ask Audra, there are some costs for kitchen expenditures in 2026. Is that all of them?
Yeah, I asked Doug to put those in there, that if we move forward with a restaurant contract, those are possible expenditures for this year, so I asked him to put those in there.
You don't expect any others?
No,
That's what I was thinking. The other thing I wanted to bring up, this is partially Audra as well. You talked about the interior redecoration or whatever the whatever.
Renovation. Mhm.
So, and that comes out in I know it's a long time. This is 2040 is $700 some thousand allowance there. Could you give me more information on what's included in that? I find that kind of hard to take.
Well, you did a major project in 20, help me out, was that 21 or 22?
it was, I think it started I think it was completed in 2022, but it was 2021 and finished up in 22.
And because they were doing so much work, we basically took the value of that and assigned that to things that are not otherwise broken out in this study. I talked to Audra about that a little bit. Probably chief among those would be restroom and locker room renovations, and probably some general renovations in corridors and things. We can break those restrooms out as opposed to doing it this way, but that number, which you say is a large number, was based on what you actually spent that time around. And the reason you get into large numbers is the facility gets dated, and the members want, as I'm sure you did as members, want it to be refreshed, updated, look like a 2020 facility, and that often changes. In the case of restrooms, everything in there, including flooring, wall materials, etc. It's a major renovation or update of those things, so it does get very expensive. And because it's a long-term item, we put that out there to 20, again, if it's 2040, that far out.
Okay. I'd like to see a little more information on that, but I'm not gonna get into the weeds on it right now. The other thing I wanted to ask you about was your interest rate assumptions. Or assumption, I guess it was one. You're looking at us getting a interest return on our investment of 2.5% throughout.
Right. And we are only able to, this is a limitation of our software. We're only able to put in one rate. So I suspect you're getting more than that now.
Yeah, and
And
I think more than that in the future as well. I think, in my view, that's a low rate. I would like to see it something more, certainly like 3%, maybe more than that. But I don't know what others here have a feeling on that as well.
Well, Barry, what are we looking for? Just CD rate return?
Yeah, CD before.
Yeah,
I mean, our term, our maturities on CDs. I think this is right, are generally above a year. We're talking about,
Okay.
and 2.5% is, I mean, that's a federal funds rate or something.
Yeah.
That's-
Yeah, I was calculating 2.4% the way they were doing it, but 2.4, 2.5, whatever, but if you're thinking about the 3.5.
Yeah, I would think about that.
we can do that. And I have no vested interest one way or the other. I'm happy to put in whatever rate you like. I would recall, and you will all recall, I think, that between, when we had the financial crash in 2008, the interest rates from then through COVID were, less than 2%. Some cases less than 1%. So I know it's looking where we are today. It's tempting to be optimistic. I would just temper that a little bit to say it can go the other way.
It can go the other way, but historically it really hasn't. You're right in terms of the pre-COVID stuff, but I'm not looking that to happen again. I hope nothing. But anyway, that's something we can talk about further.
Yeah, we're happy to put whatever rate in you folks want us to put in.
I'm just on the investment rate, if you're talking 2.5% inflation rate over the life of this study,
Yeah,
you have to factor in a return for the investment, so you can't say 2.5 for inflation and say 2.5 for return on investment.
yeah, I agree. I think that's.
There has to be some
There's a premium in there, so enough.
premium for investing it, whether it's 3.5 or whether it's 1% over that rate. Or 1.5 or something, but we're not going back to 2%, that's never gonna happen again, and certainly in my lifetime.
Well, that may not be long.
Let's be a friend.
Barry, what's your recommendation then? I mean, in our building budget finance, we think, it's like a 50% ETF mutual fund with a 50% CD rate return to kind of blend in a rate.
I would say 3% would make me happier.
Okay, just plugging in a standard.
I mean, I think you wanted to go up to 3.5, that wouldn't bother me, but I'm happy to be conservative about it.
Okay.
You're buying CDs right now for 5 years. In other words, the first 5 years of the study, which I'm gonna be having not studied. You're buying CDs now, you can buy a 5-year CD now for 4 and change.
Right.
That's what I'm buying for we're buying for our building.
Right.
And so, I mean, to say you're gonna have 2.5% over the next 4 years of the study. Seems very low. I don't know how much impact that has on the whole thing, but the point is it should be somewhat factual. Reasonable in terms of that, so 2.5 during the next 5 years. I think if we have our treasurer here, he's not here right at the moment. I think he would tell you that that seems like an awfully low rate.
So you're talking about 25,000 more.
Yeah, well, that's.
Sure, I mean, I'm not gonna sneeze at it.
I'll take it.
Sure. Okay,
I think it should be 3.5, 4, but I would say 3.5 would be fine.
I'll go with 3.5.
I kind of. I kind of err on the side of caution. I know that might be silly, especially since this is. To some extent a theoretical exercise when we start talking about. How they're developing these numbers. But I, have seen a lot of crazy stuff in my lifetime. Where didn't expect that to happen, COVID being only one of them. And I am wondering when we're talking about the inflation rates they show on the graphic, I'm not entirely sure where the graphic is. We had just pulled up there. But when they break out, the labor costs as well as, the cost of replacement. I think that's a much more realistic kind of number to be using, recognizing that in like the long run, when we're all dead 50 years from now, yeah, it's even. But right now, what I have witnessed just being on the committees I've been on is our labor costs went up radically in the last few years. And it made a huge difference in what we could and couldn't replace. So rather than just kind of say, oh, well, we're making enough interest to cover this all, which we are, don't get me wrong, we are. But I think, I feel a lot more comfortable using something like blue line on the graphic, which is repair, replacement, but in addition, labor. And I think we have to include labor in everything because that's what's making everything so expensive right now. I defer, obviously, I'm not an expert at doing this, so I have to defer to y'all. But it just seems to me that I think they're lowballing the numbers as far as replacement and what it really costs to be able to do that. Like, I know that Kathy and I were talking earlier, I think there's a projection in here for replacing the piano, I guess.
Actually, there is pianos, plural.
Oh, plural, pianos, even funnier, actually, even funnier now. $500, 20 years ago, I guess, you got the pianos. To replace them, we're saying it's 1,000. Who's bought a piano? In the last like 20 years, I bought a piano, probably 15 years ago. It was $3,000 and it was used. So that's not like remotely realistic. So I'm a little cautious here that recognizing we are probably lowballing what we're actually earning. I would say we're also lowballing the costs of some of this stuff.
If I can comment on that,
Yeah.
since you chose pianos,
Okay,
I
that's
did lowball pianos because I don't really know how you would approach pianos. There are pianos that are available for free if you'll pick it up. And I didn't know how, so I really just put in a small amount of money for that, not taking that as a serious buying a new piano purchase. But and because we used to have 2 electric pianos, I think, in there, which Audra said you no longer have. So, and we did have actual costs for those. So if you're serious about getting good pianos, I will put in a piano cost there. You just happen to pick a component that I really put in a small amount of money for, because I didn't know how you were doing that. Some communities always have them donated by members. So,
thinking of, anytime soon. It was just a number that popped out at me.
sure.
And something that in no way was reflective of the market. And what we would pay for it if we had to do it tomorrow, which we don't. But there are other things, for example, we're talking about, well, I actually had a couple of questions. If you guys don't mind, Would that be okay,
On this
Charlie?
topic though, since
Go ahead.
we're going to do this in 5 years again.
Yes,
So I think in terms of making the interest rate assumption,
yes,
we can be more realistic and go with the 3.5,
okay.
because we're pretty sure of that, a 5-year window. No one knows it, 6, 15.
Right. 5 years realistic, I get that.
I think we can do that, and
Yeah.
3.5 doesn't look right. Come 5 years from now, then we can. That's it.
What is your thought on the labor costs?
Yeah, maybe, well, that's why I was thinking maybe Doug could talk about that, because you're talking CPI index changes, and I was a little shocked too, that. Not shocked that it went up dramatically during COVID, but that it came down quickly.
It
I don't think it came down, I don't think labor costs came down.
No, they went up. So Doug, can you please address that?
The rate never went down. The size of the interest came down. So from 12.5% to 2.75%. There's never a negative. There's never a reduction in costs here. Everything in this line represents an increase in cost every year, but the rate of increase was up to 12.5% in 2022. Yeah, this is not lowering costs. This is lowering the rate of the increase in costs.
I gotcha. Okay, all right.
We also have to think with, there are 2 components. One is what do we assume we earn on? And then when you get into the labor, that's, you talk about what is the assumption on inflation. We're talking about what should we use for the number for what we earn that we.
Oh, I understand that,
Yeah,
and we,
but when you're merging it, when you say, well, what about?
well, I just think,
Yeah,
well, it's not there, and recognizing I was first of all under the misunderstanding of that was not the rate of change as it was. I thought it was the rate, you know what I mean?
okay.
And I just want to ensure that in the future, we have honestly enough money stashed away so that we don't like hit on something that, you know, Chicken Little, the sky is falling and it's really falling. So,
Well, that gets at my next question,
circle right ahead.
which is the threshold.
Yes.
I'm not a big fan of the way you've done this so far.
What page are you on?
Well. This would be page 42, 43, I guess.
Okay.
Now, what we're talking about with threshold is really a reserve, the reserves, isn't it?
Yeah, it's kind of a contingency amount, if you will.
It's a contingency account. And we're talking about having reserves for these reserves right now, somewhere in the vicinity of $650,000. It's quite a lot. But I look at this year to year, and there's one year that stands out here to me in terms of risk. And that's 2030, which you've already addressed in terms of the paving and so forth. But that's the only year in which the ending balance approaches the threshold. No other year does it even come close. This wasn't.
Yeah, it does. It does in 2 other years in the near term and 1 out in 2050. That's that balance right there.
But in any event, it seems to me we're looking at that year as being a determinant of what our threshold ought to be. And looking at yearly expenditures there of 2.1 million. And what's your view? Now that when you estimate that, that's kind of an average cost, what do we say? In other words, it could be more than that, it could be less, right?
Which number are you referring to? The threshold?
No, I'm not. I'm talking about expenditures.
Okay.
That's the green one?
No.
Red one.
Well,
The red bar here?
looking at the.
Oh, the numbers, okay, gotcha, I see them.
Yeah. it could be more than 2.1, right?
Sure. I mean, yes. Obviously that's the intended, expected cost. If I break this down to a cost, just to so you can see how that does. This is, the River Bend parking lot, for example. I've got 3 costs in here. For, 3 things that are involved in that task. And the costs and the unit cost and the total cost for each of those. So, yeah, it's possible that things in that year will cost more. Again, you can't, just as we've seen this year, you know, asphalt costs have gone up in the last few months. They're coming down again. Or when I say, oil costs have gone up, and oil is the most expensive part of the asphalt cost. So you can have a short-term fluctuation that can happen. Yes.
At what point, at what cost above 2.1 would you feel safe in saying that you're 90% sure it's gonna be less than that? That's kind of a clumsy way of saying it. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I don't have a probability approach to that of saying there's 20% probability it'll cost 10% more, and you know, if that's what you're saying, I don't have that kind of a probability cost.
Contingencies are in the 10 to 15% range, isn't it?
Yes.
So if we were to take, well, let's go even further, let's say 20% of this 2.1, that's $420,000. Why is
20%? No.
Hmm?
Oh, of that cost. Yeah.
Why wouldn't that be a more appropriate threshold than the threshold you have here is 726?
Well, this is again based on all of the total value of the reserves. If you want to have a threshold that goes up and down based on this,
Well, I don't think you need to have a threshold. This is the worst case.
yeah, you can have a lower threshold if you want.
I think we're totally over reserved with what you have in there.
I would.
Suppose we, instead of having a threshold in, starting in 2026 of 629,000, suppose we had suppose you put a threshold on, say, let's just make it, say 400,000. What would that do to our annual contributions?
Okay.
I mean, is it significant? Is it not? I don't really know that.
So I've just moved it, and that has lowered this line. So that would. So again, we're trying to get to the threshold here in 2030. I am going to look at a lower number. Now you'll see that I can fix these other calculations after that, but. So let's just check that. Yeah, that's still good in 2030. But keep in mind that you're not just worried about the contingency value of the money you're planning to spend. You're going to be also concerned about other things that may unplanned expenses, things that were projected for some other year that you suddenly had to do in that year. So that's where a larger contingency or a larger threshold, if you will, comes from. Is you're not just looking at the potential cost overrun of this bar. You're looking at other things out here that may happen that may have to happen in that year. And that's what's driving that risk.
Joking. It's a joke.
I understand that, but on the other hand, this is 2030 is the worst case. And if you look at all, many other years, you've got enormous reserves. On hand.
All building up to those enormous expenditures,
Pardon?
all building up to have enough money for those various expenditures. Like right now, I haven't adjusted the rest of the study, so we're down at zero here and $0 here, and we're going broke in the long term. And I can adjust those numbers to make that work, starting with this 8%. But that changes the calculation farther out.
Okay, where's the 8%?
8% is right here, the first up to 2030. That's increasing at 8% per year to 2030. Then I dropped to 4.5%. Well, because I'm lower here, this will have to be higher.
So making that reduce the increase in the first 5 years from 12 to 8%?
Yes,
Okay, that's a major change.
it is, and there's more risk with it.
I think there's very little risk associated with it, but, perhaps you're right, but, I think we really need to think about lowering that threshold.
Well, and that is a question for you folks, is decide how much risk you want to take. And again, just keep in mind that risk involves unplanned expenditures in addition to planned expenditures that might be overruns.
I asked, what do you guys think about that? That's a good question. Why don't we talk about it? Thoughts? Ms. Cat?
None right this,
None?
right this moment.
Okay.
So I'll take the other side of the coin here.
Okay.
I like that extra replacement amount. I know it sounds high, it didn't look high as well. I don't want to be like a condo in Florida.
Well, that's the
Where
thing.
they're, really having to harshly assess their people.
And also
Uh,
getting sued. Up the
Right.
wazoo.
I'm sure you would love to avoid lawsuits, as would we. So seeing it temporarily a little bit higher and then definitely kind of in the latter part, it looks like, boy, we got a ton of money there, but we got a ton of expense that then has to get. I think the problem we're running into is we're a 20-year-old community. Stuff's getting old. And it's getting expensive to replace. So.
But all that's being taken
Well,
into
that's your
consideration.
point.
I don't think it is.
Oh,
That was my
But I think that cushion,
Talk to him, he's the expert.
I think the very, to your point, that cushion. If we have variance in any of these projects, gets eaten up quick.
Well,
And-
10 to
and-
15%, say.
So Doug, I guess there lies the question, is that overly generous, or is that really that cushion? As projects are coming out over the next, and let's just be realistic, 5 years.
Yeah, let's take a 5-year period. That's much more realistic than looking 40 years. down.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure, 30 years from now, I don't know where I'm,
Yeah, what he does.
let's not, yes.
Yeah.
But don't worry about, I won't be here.
No, certainly it doesn't.
You're quitting the board. What are you doing?
Involuntarily, yeah.
Yeah.
Recently made clear, I can't be here.
You can't get out of it that easy, I'm sorry. Charlie,
You know,
what do you think?
in the 5 years since the last study, we the reason we're talking about this number, the 2030, is because we moved the paving way up from our projection. So again, I look at that as a little riskier number than the 600,000, but and I appreciate that right now, frankly, you're probably getting cross pressures from all sides, even on your operating budget, on everything you're dealing with. So I understand that. If you wanted to pursue that as a short-term approach and then look at it again in the future, you can do that. But I realize you're reacting to a 12% requested increase, but I just see that, your total reserve account right now of your balance under $1 million is not a large, healthy reserve. Giving all the things that you're responsible for. So I guess I just see that as a little risky. And a lot of the communities we deal with take the 5%, and some have increased that threshold to a higher number because they don't want to have years where that balance is that low. So it's really a matter of how you folks look at it. For me, let me just solve the rest of this based on this 8%. That would then take me to get through 2056. I'm going to have to increase these 4.5%. And they may actually, let's see. I'm just going to start removing that drop and continuing the 8% for a little longer. You'll see these bars are starting to come up. Oop, no.
Yeah, the other one I was concerned about is, were we ever comfortable with moving from the 22-year to 16-year on the asphalt? I mean, that definitely shortens the lifespan. Are our roads that bad? I'm sorry to sit there
You
and
know, I
ask,
have to
but,
defer to
that-
Audra and Dondi, why don't you,
well, that seemed to really shorten it.
yeah, I kind of thought we just did a lot, but you guys don't.
Yeah, we just got through doing the resurfacing and crack fill, did not last, the last of 3 months, we spent.
It was a seal coat, it
seal
wasn't,
coat.
Oh, those still,
lawn paint.
yeah.
Yeah, so we wasted money on that, I've had, the road guys come out and do some repairs and stuff, they told us to save money, the roads aren't in good shape. We do have a lot of, crack going through with the base and stuff, so they said save money and get ready to do that instead of trying to, do the seal coat and stuff, so.
The way I had looked at this at first, and in the first draft I sent to management, I actually had the paving phased in over 2 years, 2 different years. I think it might have been a couple of years apart, because in my view, the pavement basically you have a hillside that you're situated on. So some of the condos are at the higher end of the higher part of the hill, and some are at the lower part. The lower pavements are the ones that are in worse shape. And so I was looking at doing essentially, that half of the project in 1 year and the higher level in another year. And I think, and Donda, you can respond to this, but you had asked to do all of that in 1 year, and obviously there's advantages in terms of getting the price from the contractor and pinning that down by getting a better price and doing it all in 1 year. But there are ways to look at that. You could phase paving. No, I haven't. No, so when I went to 8%, I haven't solved these years yet, even with this lower. So I'm going to pull some more years up to the 8%.
Do that,
So while he's doing that,
okay,
I favor having more than enough money there. Don't forget, we do have this paving expense
that's not
in
small,
our view, that's
Yeah.
not too far out.
Yeah.
And secondly, even if there's too much there, we are earning 3.5 on it. So it's not just socked away lost money. So I would be in favor of what we're looking at right now.
I didn't do the 3.5, so let me do that. That's going to help you out.
Natalie, what were you gonna say?
Oh, I was gonna address Gandhi, but,
No, please
yeah, I
go
just
ahead.
wanted, as far as when you were asking me, I said, I didn't have an opinion at the moment, because I just wanted to listen just a little bit more, but I agree totally with Charlie, having that more than enough money available to us. And what I was gonna say to Gandhi, as far as the condition of the roads, isn't it many times dependent on what kind of winter we have?
Yeah,
Because the worse the snow is, worse that weather is, the roads tend to take more of a beating from the snow removal equipment also.
It does, yeah, and definitely, even, the salt and the plowing and stuff does get up. to roads. We also have issues with water, the high spots coming down to the low spots and underneath, so, I mean, we've had issues where garbage trucks go to stop sign and they ripple the asphalt. So we have dug those parts up, and ran the drains to the drain to solve that, but yeah, all that plays into the part of this thing not lasting long.
So that's the need to.
And like Doug said, it can be phased out, and in his original report that he gave to management, it was phased. My thought was just that we're gonna get this, how come their parking lot was repaved and mine wasn't business?
Oh,
So that's why I asked him to put it all in 1 year, but it can be separated out.
yeah, I do think that might be wise, but that's fair.
Yeah.
Marie, what do you think? Because you've been so quiet.
Yeah, well, I've been listening and I learn more by listening than I do by talking. I rely on the experts, Mr. Green, Audra, Donnie, they know the business. They listen to us when we have concerns. So.
Very good, very good. Okay, well, that's good. And Audra, do you have anything? I'm just curious.
Well, I have what's going on with this? The battery's gone dead. Yeah, I definitely think conservatively with anything, just in general. I do have a couple of questions, for Doug, but I'm kind of waiting for you all to finish up with what you have to talk.
Okay, who has questions? Who else has questions? Please.
I just want to go back to the comment that was made earlier that when the actual expenditures are made is really a guess. So I mean, we're guessing that we're gonna have this expenditure in 30 of 2,140,000. You could slide a year.
Or you do over several years.
Or several years. Or you could go back to the partial one and how much impact does that have on this whole expenditures schedule?
I'm sorry, was that a question to me? I'm busy calculating here.
140 in that 1 year, right?
He was.
Can you just repeat that?
Yeah, Bill, repeat what you said, because he didn't hear what you said. Say it again.
You back?
Yes.
I'm here.
Just a tiny question on this, the key issue seems to be this 2030, which is the last year in our study. And this major expenditure having to do with the asphalt and the timing of that, whether the weather is good or bad, or snow or rain. This 2,140,000 could be in 31, could be half that year.
Could be in 29.
Could be 29. But if it's later than, if it's later than 2030, it moves it out of our 5-year study. And we put it into the study for the next study.
You're talking about your 5-year plan.
Yes.
Okay, I mean, this study is a 30-year plan, so
But the cost involved here is being pushed forward. Once you get beyond 2030, the cost goes down considerably for owners.
Well, there's so many variables.
Right.
Like,
I agree.
5 years, like,
I agree.
There's.
It just seems like we have a 12 and then we have 4.5, then we have 1.9. I guess I'd like to see something more.
And I think those costs probably, tell me guys if I'm wrong, could be pulled out over a couple of years. But,
Sure, it could be.
okay, all right.
I mean, you could ask, for this next go round, you could ask Doug to phase it out like he'd originally had it, and we'll see what that does.
That might change it a little bit. Yeah.
that would help. While you were talking, just to show you what happened. you know, I had dropped this to 8% per year to get down to the threshold here. What happened was, even if I continued that 8%, we were falling below the threshold in these years. And I had to actually increase that to 8.7% through 2033. Yeah, actually I can do that one more time. See what that does. But a little higher percentage to get past the low point here. So that just changed the dynamics of the plan because we have some larger expenditures showing up out here. So, you know, if I did it just at 8%, I'd actually have more than 8% to get through this period in the next 10 years or the next 5 years. So these all, you know, all these things play together on how this works for a long-term funding plan.
Yeah, and so maybe you could do what Audra suggested. And maybe see what would happen if we would extend the project to 2 years, or could it be done over 3 years, you think, Andy?
I think
Did you have it
if you
before?
break it into too many pieces, you're going to pay, you're paying a setup cost for the contractor just to show up. And that you have to do certain preparation work to do those projects. If they have to repeat that cost on too many small projects, you're really spending too much money just getting to the project.
So 2.
Do 2, no more than 2.
How many years apart was it? Do you happen to remember?
On that last, I can find, I may have had them spread a couple of years apart, but let's just say that because you could actually make it one project and pay for it over 2 years, depending on when you do the project. So you could do it out of 2 budgets. Let's just look at.
Yeah,
That's a good.
there's less complaints from residents, if it's all done at one time. Paid over 2 years,
Right,
budget wise, that's much more.
that's great.
So I would, the Magnolias were, and what's, help me out. Is it Riverview that's next to the Magnolias?
Depends on what side.
Yeah.
No, it's all Magnolias down there.
River Bend or Riverview? Bend is below, Riverview is.
Riverview is on the hill.
Okay.
Is on the hill. River Bend is the one that you said was the worst, I think.
That's at the bottom.
Okay. So let's do River Bend and Magnolias in 2030. And let's take these others and move them to 2031. Of course.
We haven't done Magnolias at all yet, have we, Audra?
The asphalt.
As far as asphalt, have we? Have we
Well,
needed to?
We did a complete mill and repave in 2014.
Oh, did we? Well,
Yes,
we're-
yeah,
isn't here yet.
but I mean, we've still coated since then a couple of times, yeah.
Just a comment. The weather does have an effect, but it's more aggravating problems that are already occurring, rather than creating new problems. The problems you're having with your pavement are problems with the base, I think largely, and it can be, certainly it's due to heavy truck traffic and things like that, but it's also due to, again, on those lower areas, more moisture, more water in the soil in the base all the time, which is impacting that. And another thing I would recommend on that is that you have someone look at that and recommend if some other remedial work should be done in some of those areas before just repaving them.
So, Doug, as you point that out, which is, it's valid, it's a concern. We have a lot of groundwater. I believe there's a spring running under several portions of the pavement. It's true.
Trust me, I've seen.
I've seen it.
It's never goes away.
No, so, you talk about, ameliorating efforts, like, for example, French drains or weather
Right.
drains. Move water around. That does not get built into this plan, does it? Or
It's not in this plan because I don't have that as a recommendation. But it might be that you should have an engineer to look at that, look at those areas, and if they come back and say you should do this project, which is a under drain project, then we could add that into that
What do you guys think?
cost. What happened here? So what happened is I moved these to 2 years, and what it has not changed the fact that now the driving factor is these later years. So actually you could do these in 1 year and it wouldn't change this plan. Let's go out and look at 2032 and 34 because there's probably, okay, that's the pavement breaking down to 30 and 31. 32 is the potential for that tennis court roof. I don't know that you'll need to do it in 32. We actually, I think we moved it back from where we had it previously. You know, this is a situation that, again, with that roof, it's a question of how long will the waterproof membrane last under the tennis court. And it seems to be holding up now. And Dondi, I don't know if you have any other history or information related to that on anything related to that membrane.
We just have that report that we gave you that
Yeah.
we had done before we laid the tiles. Knowing that we may have to pull up those tiles and replace that roof and put them back down.
And
Yeah.
It
So
was
it's-
an engineering consulting firm. I can't remember the name of it.
So it's hard to predict. They were, I think they were predicting a certain number of years left on that membrane. It's not exposed to anything. You can't see it. And it's underneath a concrete, the tennis court is a concrete layer on the membrane, which is then on the structural concrete roof. And it's the demolition of the concrete tennis court that is really the largest part of that project. To get to the membrane to replace it. So whether that has to happen in 2032, you know, maybe that'll last a few more years. I don't know. The 2034, let's just look at the costs in 2034.
So I have to ask, I think this may be a question for Donnie. When the tennis court was split, you know, to a pickleball court, and of course 5G added as well. Was some of that project work done at that time? Or we kind of started a little bit, you know?
No, we had the engineer come out before we laid down that tile, to check and make sure, you know, we were good. And they did the reports and we did go ahead and lay down that tile because the membrane was good at that time.
They took core samples.
Yeah.
So I have a question. There are obviously probably a gazillion other questions that we could go back and forth about as far as cost of this and when it's due. Is that the right approach you're supposed to be taking to this? Is that your
I mean,
experience?
if there are major concerns that you have or questions about when things are happening or specific costs that are assigned, you could send those to me. I mean, talk about them today or
Okay.
send those to me. I mean, we don't have to waste Doug's time with every little thing, but we'll have another meeting and yeah, I mean,
Okay.
I mean,
No, I
as long as it's not like 100 different things.
I
Yeah,
want to make sure I'm doing this.
no, you are.
Okay, good.
But I think, you know, Bill said it, Kathy said it too, certain items, just like the membrane on the roof. Unless it's leaking,
Yeah, we sometimes push those off.
I mean, sorry, Donnie, to be so rude about it, but
No,
if it's still good and it's covered anyways, it could give us a couple extra years of life,
and it happens
all great for us,
all the time.
right?
Yeah.
It kind of goes to the reverse also.
It also goes
The
in
idea
reverse.
of having more than enough money for.
When we had
that
to-
Just in case it does.
Exactly.
When we had to, tell me if I'm wrong, I seem to recall that we had to replace all those windows on the side of the pool. I think we did something to make it, to extend its life a little bit, but at the end of the day, that's a huge expense when that comes. And it's gonna have to be done. We have a 20-year-old property, like you said.
Sure.
there are certain things that are just gonna have to start happening. Because otherwise, I think we risk, and this is just my personal opinion, not the chair's. But my personal opinion is that, you know, we've had, at least on building and grounds, residents as well as a few board members sometimes say, well, the property looks less desirable. And the fact is, we have real estate agents prior to Audra coming on board, thank goodness for Audra. But really, people, real estate agents were telling their clients, well, you know, you may wanna be careful, it doesn't look the way it used to, it doesn't have the same money invested in it, and again, it was 20 years earlier, right? So I think it behooves us to at least make sure that we can cover what needs to be covered. That's kind of, John, I agree.
Okay.
It was pretty much my bottom line.
But all fairness to us, and many of those real estate agents are comparing us to some of these new properties.
They are,
To the advantage that we still have in bigger closets and things that we.
well, and we have a 40-acre property in that.
Okay.
That is,
Yes.
you know, that is really our big selling thing, but we have to maintain, right?
Absolutely.
I had a couple other kind of generic questions, if it's okay, if anybody minds my asking them. Is that okay? You know? Well, no, I just wanna make sure. So. On page 12, I'm going all the way back to the beginning. We have site pavements, again. What are site improvements? As opposed to.
Let me
buildings and closet interiors.
get to the right study here.
Yeah, and this is the component summary provides that emphasis.
It's
Page-
page 5 of your, it's page 5 of your. report.
Okay. What are site improvements?
Yeah,
Site improvements, okay, so that section is and it starts down here, site improvements, so the community entrance, the monument sign out front, which is on the cover of the study, the big steel arbor. These are these components down here. The gatehouse, all the entrance essentially items, stone piers, fencing around the it's all gatehouse there, fencing around the community. All of these subsections are in site improvements. So all the fencing in the community.
Or starts on page, his page 7, our page 14.
our page 15.
Our page 14, he's got site pavements. Or I'm sorry, community entrance.
Oh, I thought that fell on the site pavements.
No, it's
Site pavement,
underneath of
just
it.
Paving of
Yes,
roads.
I'm sorry, the improvements.
The through the wall recommendations. Steel arbor. Monuments.
Gatehouse.
The through, that's for the gatehouse, right?
Everything here is for the gatehouse.
So you're-
Fencing.
Now, within that particular framework. How do you list things like the walkways that are around the property, the trail, basically? That we always have to throw some money at.
Stone pathways, is that it?
That's in pavements, I believe.
Oh, you put that in pavements. Okay.
Well,
Um,
I'm not sure. Let me see. Yeah.
Site infrastructure and improvements, is that it? 2,
Yeah,
3, 1.
the asphalt path, there's portions of it are asphalt and that is in pavements. And
Part that stone.
let's see, site infrastructure, the stone pathway is in site improvements, stone pathway repairs.
We're on this and that. What page are you on?
The stone pathway repairs is on our page 17. About halfway down the page.
Okay, so that's site infrastructure and improvements, but then on page 14, we were talking about community entrance, and that's under what? component?
That's under site improvements. Yeah. Let me do it in the live version because it may make a little more sense to you.
Interesting, I was slipping around here.
Okay, site improvements right here is part 2. That has several groups within it. The community entrance, fences, walls, and retaining walls, what we call infrastructure items around the site, drainage, utilities, and irrigation. And then each one of those have a number of components in it. So the community entrance has 11 components in it, which include the gatehouse among those. And
This is a big game.
fences, again, are mostly around the perimeter of the property, and you have some guardrails, some decorative walls. Site infrastructure does have the stone pathway, has streetlights, the maintenance sheds over up on the cul-de-sac between the buildings, the waterfall fountain that comes off the east side of the clubhouse. You got 2 fountains. So there's just miscellaneous things all around the property that are in that component section. Drainage, utilities, and irrigation, our allowances for irrigation system repairs, underground water pipe repairs, and sanitary sewer pipe repairs.
Audra, excuse me, yeah, Audra, a question.
Mhm.
When we look at the numbers for this, I'm just looking at like metal sign replacement allowance or flagpoles. How about the irrigation system? They kind of list something like $4,000 a year for maintenance in generic terms. And they do that in a couple places in the report. Is that pretty much, you're comfortable with that? Is that what we're spending?
That's what we're spending, and that was one of the questions that I did have for Doug, because he added that annual cost into the study. We were paying for those repairs out of operating.
Yeah,
And I asked him, well, could we put it in the study? And Doug, if you could explain, you had basically said, typically you don't put it in the study because it's an annual expense. You're putting money in, take it out. So that was one of the things. I thought we were gonna take it out and leave it in the operating budget. But you left it in here for this
Now,
draft.
which one did I leave in? I'm sorry.
It's the annual irrigation repair.
Okay. Let me
in case of the repairs, we just had that, whatever week it was last year where we had to rip out all the gardens. And we've been repairing it.
But that wasn't an irrigation repair.
Really?
It wasn't. No, it didn't have anything to do with the irrigation.
Okay.
what I had in here was not an annual cost. What I had is a major cost for literally replacing sections, large portions of the irrigation system. Now, it may be that you don't need that based on what you're doing annually.
You do have an annual cost in there too. You have both. You have, it's
not seeing-
003.003.0011.
Well, then that's wrong. So let's go there and see.
Yeah, that was one of my questions. Because I know that you have 25% of the irrigation system every so many years. Can you take out all of those?
Yes,
Okay.
I can remove that cost.
Okay.
You don't think we need it?
I don't think it should be in the study.
Okay,
Yeah.
very good. All right, that was one question.
Okay.
And then, every year, we also have the PATS washing out, that we think you have enough money in this study to maintain that. But should this not be long-term maintenance costs, or am I wrong? It's just replacement costs.
There should not be maintenance costs.
Replacement costs.
Right. Really, anything that's paid out of the reserve account, you should be able to identify it with a component, and it should be assigned to that component. And it's either replacing that component or doing some major work on the component that might extend that component's life, like rebuilding a motor or something. You know, but if it's just a normal repair that happens, you really aren't funding the reserves for that. So you're paying it out of the reserve account and it's not really funded.
Okay.
Is replenishing stone in the stone pathway? I know we have it in here, but really, is that something we should be considering, a replacement reserve cost?
And and that's, again, that's a choice you can make. I put it on a 3-year allowance,
Okay.
but so it's not every year or every 2 years, but it really depends on how you do it, how you run that operation. If you're doing something more often, and can plan on it in your operating budget, then put it in the operating budget. But if it's something that you can't plan, you're not going to do every year, and you don't want to put it in the operating budget, we can set some money aside in the reserve budget for it. Things like allowances like that are really your choice as to how you want to manage the property.
Gary, you have some questions. Thanks for waiting. Appreciate it. One, right here.
Yeah.
He's got it.
Please go, okay.
Yes.
I'm Derek Trevevin. We worked together about 10 years ago at Potomac Ridge.
Okay. Hello.
Regarding the current study, so that your replacement cost for the study year, how is the inflation compounded to that year? Or is it compounded, at the rate that is on your chart?
Yes.
Year? Or
Yes.
is it variable compounding for every year leading up to that point?
Well, it's compounded. It's always compounded, but meaning that because we have in our chart, because we have a different rate every year, you're essentially taking, let's say you're taking a 26 cost and you're increasing that maybe by, if we had 4.5% in for 27, you're increasing it by that rate. Then you're taking that new cost and increasing it by 3.1% if that's the inflation rate for the next year. So you're always taking the resulting cost and increasing it by a percentage. It is compounding.
Thank you. Can you tell me a little bit more about the reserve account transfer change rate? I'm not understanding quite how that is used. So 1.3, you have it set at 1.3%. Is that applied to the overall assessment?
No, no, just the reserve. You have a line item in your budget for transfer to reserves. That's the line item we're dealing with. Now that's going to impact your overall assessment, obviously, but that's the only line we're dealing with. So we've done some changes here. We looked at, we've actually spread the paving out over 2 years. We have this potential tennis court work here in 2034. You were talking about the curtain walls, the glazed walls and things around the pool. Those costs are actually showing up in this year, among other things. So these now are becoming the driving years for driving the study. And so if I go to this table,
Understand this reserve account transfer change rate.
So the change rate now is 8.7%, which is increasing starting with the current year. Your reserve transfer budget was 542,000. We're taking that number and increasing it by 8.7% to get 2027's budget for that transfer. And then taking that number and increasing it by 8.7% to get the 2028 budget, etc. Now here I dropped it down to 2%, and it looks like I can drop it lower if we kept this plan in place, because now there's nothing else driving this except some costs out here, which we don't need to increase at that rate to pay for those.
You understand anymore? You have a follow-up? You look for fun. Get the answer. If you're not satisfied with the answer.
If you don't understand the answer I gave you, I'll go through it again.
Don't think we're talking about the same thing.
Okay.
I understand the charts. I use them frequently, not from your study, but from another study. And to that end, I would like to advise this committee. The more money you collect up front, the less money you have to collect later, not just because of changing X to X, but you're accumulating interest the earlier you do the study. But back to my question to you, Doug. What I'm talking about is early on in your report, there's a section called Reserve Account Transfer Change Rate.
Mhm.
And it was set at 1.3%.
We had in later years, well, let me go to that document.
That's the question.
Or were you talking about perhaps this paragraph up here? Were you talking about this discussion?
Look at the chart. Yeah,
Okay.
chart on page 50.
Okay. So what we had was starting out in the first 10 years, we had 12% increase per year for the first 4 years. That reduced to 4.5% for the next 4 years and dropped to 1.3% starting in 2035, which is right here. And that was all, and that continues for the rest of all the years in the study. So starting from this year forward, we were only increasing that transfer to reserves by 1.3% each year to get through here. And that's because you had gotten the balance up high enough, and actually not so much the balance, but the funding level up high enough that you didn't need to increase the funding level at its higher rate.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Can I ask one question before you?
Yeah.
Doug, I was wondering if you could address the question that we had and it came up in our Budget and Finance Committee earlier this week about spending from reserves for items that are, say, less than a certain threshold. It may be 1,000, 5,000, or there may be no threshold. And I had emailed you about that. What is
Yeah.
your recommendation about that?
We will do that for communities. We normally let the community tell us what items they don't want to pay for out of reserves by going down and looking what's in the study. When you sent me that question yesterday, Audra, I looked at the study and there's only maybe 2 items in the study that are less than $1,000 right now. One is that through the wall air conditioner in the gatehouse, which we actually had estimated at a higher cost, over 1,000, but you replaced it for $948 or something. So I put that actual cost in there. So if we had that $1,000 threshold, I'd say, yeah, just take that out. I will say for a community of your size, we often get a request for a larger threshold, like 2,000 or 2,500, when we get those requests. The problem is, there's a couple of problems. One is, if it's in your reserve study, it's something you're tracking. And if it's not in your reserve study, it's going to become an unplanned expense in your operating budget when it occurs. So on those items that are small enough, that's fine as long as you feel you're budgeting enough money to handle those, that's fine. There may be some items that in fact you do want to track, and keeping them in the reserve account is a good way to track them. So, an example would be like the wood shop equipment. There's a lot of things in there. Some of them are probably close to $1,000. but you want to track those and plan on when you're going to replace them. And that's how the reserve study is valuable there. So you always get into these things that are close to 1,000, and it's under 1,000 this year, but when you add inflation for the year it's going to be replaced, it's going to be over 1,000. So do you want to exclude that, or do you not? And
No, I don't think you have to exclude, but I guess my question is, let's say it's a motor and a major component, and the motor only costs $400.
Yeah.
It's gonna extend the useful life, but it's only $400. Are we paying for that out of replacement reserves or not? If we have that $1,000 mark, then we have at least a guideline. Or on the alternative, anything, even if it's $50 or $200, we would pay for it out of replacement reserves.
yeah, I would say no,
No to what?
not replacing it out of replacement reserves.
Not, so it would be an operating expense?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Mm.
For those small expenses. I'm dealing with another community that, yeah, they sent me everything they had spent out of the reserve account for the last 5 years and doing an update, and they had $2 million, and there was actually only $1 million that I could really attribute to reserve components, existing reserve components that would really impact those reserve components. And so there was just a lot of, as you said, there might have been some expenditures that were as low as $50 or something.
Mhm.
That just you're really not funding for those things in the funding plan. You're funding for the replacement of that component. So you can pay for them out of that, but that's going to end up giving you a lower account balance at the end of the year because you spent more things for repair out of that were not envisioned in the funding of that component.
Okay. And you wouldn't have things in your study that are that trivial anyway.
Right.
But if it's in your study and it says that, then I could, if it's in your study, even if it ends up being less than 1,000, I could still justify it. Like through the water.
Yes. And let's take your question of the motor. Let's say a pump motor. And I'd say it's your choice, but one of the things about doing it out of reserves is that we can then note that in that component that motor was replaced in 2026. And we may have had the pump replacement plan for 2029 and say, based on this happening, we can move that out a couple more years.
Okay.
So having that knowledge base in the reserve study will affect that component funding plan.
So Doug, this means that you don't have any items in here that could be considered a miscellaneous item.
Right. And that's basically a tenant in the, we do work for the community. So we do work under the guidelines of the Community Associations Institute. They actually have a reserve component guidelines. They don't recommend putting anything in as a miscellaneous component that is not assigned to a specific asset, just a miscellaneous component.
Okay, are you satisfied? with
Yes,
this? Okay.
thank you.
All right, this has been a pleasure, but we've been here for 2 hours. Does anybody have any pressing discussion left for Doug? If not, my suggestion is we can break here. And if you have additional questions, I think we should address them to Audra. She can forward them to Doug.
Yes.
You
Yeah.
said breaking your.
No, I mean adjourn.
Yeah, but we could let Doug go, and then if there's any additional questions, because Doug, I'm gonna email with you just a couple of small things
Sure.
that need to be tweaked. And then we could have a short discussion on whether you want to leave it the way he had it, what he changed with the threshold and the interest rate, and see that again over the next few weeks when you see it a second time.
I think that's worth doing.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So
Can
any
we
other?
just recap what changes we'd like to see?
Yeah. Okay.
based on our discussion.
Please go right ahead, but I wanna make sure that we feel it's a unanimous kind of thing. In the sense that if we're still talking about the threshold and going back and forth about higher, lower, it should be something that we agree to as a group.
Well,
Or at least the majority.
We want to see a couple of calculations, maybe we want to see, a couple of different approaches, so.
Exactly.
May not be unanimous in terms of,
No, but I think a couple of different approaches and looking at what the, what impact of them would be, is definitely worth doing.
I just want to understand what it is we're asking him to redo.
Okay.
Understood, okay.
Well, keep in mind, I think I'm the only one here who's worried about the threshold. I don't have a vote, I'm just here as an observer.
But you know something, I think your comments are worth considering and I don't think.
I
we
hope
need to-
so.
Yeah, no, I don't think we need to rush into that decision today.
Except the one about my age.
Well, and that's a different story, yes.
No questions there.
We can vote on that. Okay, yeah, if there's something else you wanna ask him or just get clarification on, please go right ahead. And then we can wrap up and adjourn for that.
No, I just want to say, we're talking 3.5% for the interest,
Yes,
is that agreed?
Agreed.
Are we saying that we're gonna look at splitting this, 2030 expenditure of 2.1 million into 2 years?
I don't know that we came to a conclusion on that.
Well, as I'm asking, what we're asking him
I
to
think we should.
rework those numbers
I
on,
think we should have a run that includes that.
Yeah, we should have a run that includes both.
yes. And then I think just picking up Barry's question about the threshold level, if we went to 3% as opposed to 5%, what would those numbers look like?
Okay.
I think those are good.
On the threshold at the bottom of at the bottom of the funding plan?
Yes,
Okay, so we went to, well, I plugged in a number that you mentioned, which was 400,000. So
Yeah.
that's actually what the threshold is at the moment.
Okay. I know you had 5% as your operating number.
It's probably, you're right, it's probably about 3%.
As opposed to 5%.
That's probably,
so use 3% instead of 400,000.
yeah, that's good.
Okay,
I mean, I can do it either way. I can use a percent or I can use a number like 400,000.
400,000, I just pulled out of the air.
by the percent then.
Okay.
John?
Yeah, the only things I think though that we talked about quickly was like the cook line equipment. Or anything listed 2026. Are we doing it this year or is that for 2027 or further? back?
That is
I just wanna make
unknown.
sure that, you know, is Doug capturing that?
He has captured everything that may become, I have one other little thing I'm gonna have him add. But it's not with regards to the kitchen or the restaurant. But he has captured everything that is a possibility with reference to the kitchen, and the restaurant. If it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. You know what I'm saying? But it's in there in
Okay.
case.
So we'll keep
Yeah.
it as 2026 item
Yes.
with a 50% chance of.
Yes.
Can't go wrong.
Well, Doug, thank you very much for your time today. and
Thank you.
for your patience.
Absolutely.
Thank you. All right. I will leave then. And I'll wait to hear from you, Audra.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
He's gone. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, let's wrap up. What would you guys like to, is there something we want to say at the end of this today? About what our next steps are?
My immediate question to Audra is, I think you mentioned that we'll be looking at this again in 2 weeks, that's after those changes are made.
Yes, I said we could try to schedule something for a couple weeks or 4 weeks. You know, he could probably turn this around to me pretty quickly, so.
That doesn't seem like it took that long.
Yeah, so, the only thing is I don't have an exact date yet because I'd have to check our schedule to see what's available for the room and so forth, so, but does that, I can generally email you guys about that and
Yeah,
give you,
if you guys feel
I mean,
comfortable with that.
unless there's any specific dates that you know that you're not
I
available.
have a few additional questions, but I think Look, I think it would be more productive for me to meet with you separately. to
Or
make sure-
email them to.
Or email them
Yes.
to you, because I can't quite. figure
Yeah, I
out
think
where
that's-
they are, but I think they're in here.
Okay.
I just don't know.
Audra, can we, meet again before the next,
Budget?
Finance meeting, yeah.
Yeah.
When is that?
That,
The 27th,
Oh,
July,
yeah.
yeah.
something like that.
Something
Can't
like
remember.
that.
It's. I think it's the 27th.
So would it be beneficial to meet?
28 maybe.
Have a pre-meeting before bringing him on the line.
I think a pre-meeting. What do you all think? To kind of just although maybe we need to see what work he's pulled out. What do you guys think? I'm okay with the pre-meeting because I have some generic questions and they're not as technical as what these gentlemen are asking.
So Audra, Don, you need Barry can bring us up to date on things
Yeah.
before we get him on, right?
Yeah, and then John, what do you think? Yeah. So, definitely.
No, I'll start the questioning.
Yeah, so what
So
what
there's
are we
two
doing?
meetings in July,
Question,
what it sounds like.
We're gonna meet again before we meet them with that. We're gonna meet one more time
Okay.
before we meet with that.
Or even,
So
you
it,
know, 30 minutes at the next meeting with that.
okay,
Yeah,
That-
same day.
You have to work.
Exactly.
Yeah.
30 minutes.
Better idea.
I'm sorry.
Oh, that's fine. Yeah, okay. We'll try to meet before the 26th, if possible.
yes,
26th is tomorrow.
July. It'll be mid-July sometime.
That's right. Okay, well, thank you, everyone. What am I supposed to do here? Committee questions and discussion, we certainly did that. Now it says committee discussion and recommendation to the board of members.
Yeah, they're not ready for that.
Okay, and we did our open forum, yes, open forum, we got that, all right. And then I think we can adjourn. Can somebody please move for adjournment?
So
Second, good. Passes.
Good.
Thank you very much.
Good job. Okay.